Oh no, I forgot to buy it, Madison said, and then started laughing as if she found it amusing. Jacob joined in with the laughter. Their reactions were like something out of a comedian. But this was no sketch. Madison probably deliberately didn't prepare my plane ticket. It's clear from her usual behavior. She seems to find me, her mother-in-law, a bother. So, she probably didn't want to take me on the family trip. On the morning of the trip, in the middle of the travel season, it was going to be tough to secure a plane ticket now. So, that's her excuse for leaving me behind. Well, it can't be helped. If that's what Madison wants, I'll back down. But this petty meanness of hers might have repercussions down the line. They might regret it, but it's her doing. She'll have to take responsibility as an adult. My name is Grace Brown. I'm 52 years old. I lost my husband 2 years ago and now live with my son and his wife. Jacob, my son, is hardworking and got a job at a major company after graduating from a prestigious university. Then he met Madison, got married, and they had a son, Tom. It's a picture-perfect life. However, I'm not part of my son's life plan. My daughter-in-law, Madison, blatantly treats me as a nuisance, and Jacob just goes along with whatever she says. You should work too. As soon as she enters the room, Madison says this with her arms crossed. Can't you at least earn your own living expenses and help support the family? But, with Jacob's income, I don't really need to work. Jacob is still young, at 29, but he's already seen as a promising employee. His income is stable. However, Madison completely dismisses my argument. Don't you think it's shameful to rely entirely on your son's income for food, clothing, and the house you live in? Is that really necessary to say? It's the truth, she says with a cold voice. We can barely afford just Tom's extracurricular activities. It sounds like she's making a reasonable argument. But I know the truth. Madison splurges on designer bags and cosmetics, straining our finances. All right, I understand. Realizing that arguing was futile, I contacted an old acquaintance that day to ask for a job. I wanted to return to work as a part-timer at the company where I worked when I was young. As soon as I went back to work, Madison's whims only increased. She started to hang out with friends using the time when Jacob and I were not around. Jacob, can I talk to you for a second? What's up, Mom? I had brought up my concerns to Jacob just once before. Madison had gradually been coming home later and was starting to forget about household chores. Laundry would be left hanging even in the evening, and dinner wouldn't be ready. There were aspects I just couldn't cover anymore. Could you talk to Madison? At least ask her to properly do the household chores. It's probably pointless if I say it. All right. Jacob nodded then, but it seemed like he never actually spoke to her. Or maybe Madison talked her way out of it. Either way, Madison's behavior didn't improve. The one who felt sorry was Tom. I'm hungry. Just wait a bit, I'll make something you can eat. When Tom came back from school, he was in a situation where he couldn't even have dinner, let alone a snack. I was out working until the last minute, too. Even if I started cooking dinner as soon as I got home, dinner time inevitably got pushed back. Grandma, I want to eat pasta. All right. Let's have pasta tonight then. Yeah. Despite it all, Tom never blamed anyone. He didn't complain about the late dinners, and he honestly ate whatever I cooked. Grandma's food is delicious. I'm glad. I petted Tom's head as he happily munched on pasta, feeling relieved. Tom looks like his father, reminding me of Jacob when he was young. Jacob used to love the pasta I made, too. While thinking about this, I wait for the two of them to come home. I'm home. I heard a voice from the entrance. Madison walked into the living room. In her hands, she carried shopping bags with brand logos on them. Welcome back, Madison. Jacob, who had come home from work earlier, casually greeted her. It seemed Jacob was rather proud of his wife's extravagant spending. He felt fulfilled as a man for being able to provide his wife with a life of luxury. Feeling this from his profile, I sighed. I wonder what Madison and Jacob think about Tom. Both of you. After dinner, as Tom went back to his room, I seized the moment to speak up. What is it? Tom feels lonely every day when he comes back from school. You, as his parents, should properly welcome him home. About that, you see. Mesmerized by her new bag, Madison spoke. Her tone was casual, as if it were an afterthought. His teacher said with Tom's current grades, he won't get into a good middle school. So, we were thinking of increasing his private tutoring hours. If you push him too hard, Tom is going to collapse. I exclaimed almost like a scream. Tell Jacob too. Do not push the boy too hard. I leave Tom's education up to Madison. Jacob's gaze was fixed on the TV program as he answered. If Madison says so, then I think that's fine too. Jacob! What was he thinking? Jacob had always lacked a sense of independence. During his school days, that was treated as a virtue. He was the kid who listened well to teachers and parents. Now, it seems like he's just following Madison. Jacob, you're his parent too. Quit nagging. The parents have agreed it's okay. Can't you just be quiet, Mom? Exactly. Jacob and Madison together dismissed my words. But just as I was about to say more, I heard footsteps. Tom had come back. Tom. It's okay, Grandma. I'll work hard on my studies. You're such a good boy, Tom. Madison smiled at Tom. He bravely nodded back at his mother. True to his word, Tom started private tutoring sessions. It was an obviously unsustainable schedule. Soon, Tom fell ill. Tom looked feeling bad in the morning. His face clearly showed he had a fever. Tom, you should stay home from school today. Don't make decisions on your own. Madison snapped back, irritated, but I stood my ground. He has a fever. He needs to rest. So, don't tell me what to do about my son. Her hysterical voice cut off. Jacob came in with a cheerful voice, saying, I got some time off. Starting today, I'm on vacation. This weekend, we're going on a family trip. Really? Madison's mood instantly changed to a smile. Her stance shifted dramatically. Then we need to get that fever down. I'll have him skip school, so please take Tom to the doctor. What? Just moments ago, she insisted he go to school. Now, she's saying to skip school and go to the doctor instead. Confused but prepared, I got ready to take Tom to the hospital. Regardless of the reason, it's good that Tom can skip school. And I can take him to the hospital. Sorry, Grandma. It's all right. Let's go to the hospital together. Yeah. After nodding, Tom muttered to himself. I hate bitter medicine. Then we'll ask the doctor for medicine that isn't bitter. Really? Tom finally showed a childlike expression. His eyes were sparkling. Is there such a thing as sweet medicine? There must be. Let's ask the doctor about it, okay? Yeah. Holding the innocently smiling Tom's hand, I got into the car driven by Jacob. When we arrived at the hospital parking lot, Jacob said, I don't want to catch a cold either, so I won't go inside the hospital. That's so heartless. I protested, but Jacob didn't pay any attention. He didn't get out of the car finally, so I reluctantly led Tom to the reception. The hospital was fairly busy. Everyone looked somewhat unwell, and it was painful. Then, it happened. Help! Are you okay? An elderly person sitting next to us suddenly clutched their head in pain. Though I was panicked, I managed to call a nurse. Over here! Someone has collapsed and looks in pain. This is serious. The nurse who responded also looked pale. It was a dangerous situation. Is he going to be okay? He'll be fine. The doctor will take care of him. Holding the anxious Tom's hand, I reassured him. Inwardly, I wasn't sure what would happen. I wondered if the elderly person would be saved. The other patients were also looking in the direction the elderly person was taken, murmuring amongst themselves. After a while, a man in a white coat approached. In my flustered state, it took me a moment to realize he was a doctor. "Good job, Mrs. Brown." "What?" Looking puzzled, the doctor explained the situation to me. "That patient might not have survived if the treatment had been delayed. Thanks to you calling the nurse, the patient was saved." "Oh, it was nothing." I thought it wasn't something to be thanked for. Helping someone in trouble should be natural. Yet, the doctor and the patients looked at me as if I was some kind of hero. "Please, stop it." Feeling embarrassed, I looked down. Peeking at my face, Tom said happily, "Grandma, you're amazing." "Do you think so?" "Yes, you were splendid." The doctor's words, as if to emphasize, were followed by applause from the patients. I felt even more out of place. But I was glad the elderly person was saved. Returning to the car after Tom's examination, Jacob looked puzzled. "Was there some celebration at the hospital? It was noisy just now." "Grandma helped an elderly man who was in trouble." Tom leaned forward excitedly as he spoke. Jacob's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mom? It's not that big of a deal. Let's go home quickly." "Yeah." The car started moving. On the way home, Tom praised me a lot. Jacob seemed half skeptical, half believing, but that was exactly the reaction I preferred. By the time we got home, Tom had fallen asleep from exhaustion. I picked him up and carried him to his room. As I tucked him into bed, Tom smiled softly. "Grandma, you're amazing." "Oh, Tom. I really hadn't done anything special. If I hadn't gone to call the nurse, surely someone else would have. Then, someone else would have been the hero of the hospital. Is he just sick?" As I walked out of the room, Madison was standing in the hallway. To Madison's question, I replied, "Yes. The doctor said he's probably just worn out. Studying is important, but he's still a child with limited stamina. We can't overdo it." "I see." Her response was as if it were someone else's concern. "Then, we'll let him skip school this week. We have a family trip planned, after all. Tom needs to get better." That's true. Whatever the reason, I was glad Tom could skip school. It was that night. "Excuse me. Is this the residence of Grace Brown, correct?" "Yes, it is." I had thought it was a delivery or something, but a stranger was standing there. Wondering what it was about, I was on guard. The man started to tell me something unexpected. After the man left, I returned to the living room. "Who was that just now?" Jacob, who was playing video games, asked. I smiled wryly. "Just someone. By the way, where are we going for our trip?" "We haven't decided yet." Relieved at the expected answer, I suggested. "Let's go to France." "Mom, what are you suddenly saying?" "I got some invitations to a hotel in France from an acquaintance. Let's all go together," I said with pride. Jacob and Madison looked at each other. Seeing the skeptical looks on their faces, I showed them the actual invitation. "Here it is." "Wow! That hotel was featured on TV before," Madison said, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Frowning, Jacob stared at me intently. "Mom, who gave you this? What does it matter? It's a gift." Madison, beaming, looked at me with anticipation, rubbing her hands together. "Thank you." "I'm glad you're pleased." Laughing in response, I was foolish. The morning we were finally set to depart on our trip. "Oh no, I forgot to buy something." With an unpleasant smile, Madison said. "I forgot your plane ticket. It's too late to arrange it now, so you'll have to stay home." "That's terrible." Even Jacob was laughing, reacting as if watching a skit on TV. But this was no skit. This was actually happening to me. "Okay." I could tell from Madison's expression. She had deliberately not prepared my ticket. Then, Tom timidly said, "Then, I won't go either." "Oh? Are you still feeling unwell?" "It's not that, Mom. It's just sad for Grandma to be left alone." Those were kind words. I hugged Tom and said, "It's okay. Don't worry about me, just go and have fun." "No!" It was rare for the honest Tom to insist on his point. Crossing her arms, Madison said, "Well, can't be helped. Then, it'll just be Jacob and me going. Just the two of you." "Nice." And with that, Madison and Jacob headed to the airport from our home. Left at home, I thought while preparing lunch for Tom and me. Madison. I knew she disliked me. But I never imagined she'd do something this cruel. Well, it can't be helped. I was predicting what would happen next. Because of that invitation. It cannot be used if she is absent. What? Apparently, there was such an exchange between Madison and the hotel manager upon their arrival. Jacob called me in a distressed state, and I listened to his story. "The elderly man you helped, Mom, seems to be the CEO of the company that owns the hotel." "Yes, that seems to be the case." I nodded over the phone. I had received an explanation about the situation from the man who visited me. Strictly speaking, that elderly man was the former CEO. He had handed over all company responsibilities to his son and was enjoying a peaceful retirement in the countryside. That's when he happened to fall ill and met me at the hospital. That invitation was a token of gratitude from the CEO. So, I thought it probably wouldn't work without me being there. "How mean?" Jacob said, exasperated, but I had my reasons. "Jacob. If you had stood up for me at that moment, I was planning to tell the truth." "It's my fault?" Jacob's voice grew loud in surprise. Truly, he was unaware of his own lack of compassion. "It's sad, considering he's my son." "Grace!" Madison's furious voice interrupted. Despite the shrillness that hurt my ears. "What are you going to do now? We can't stay at the hotel, and all our plans are ruined. If you had taken me on the trip, this trouble wouldn't have happened, would it? It's because of their petty meanness that they ended up being locked out of the hotel together. Other hotels have been contacted, and none will take us in. Then, you have no choice but to come back home." "You're joking." Madison raised a distressed voice as if she were the victim. "Spending so much money to come to France, we cannot just go back home. I wouldn't recommend sleeping outside. It's dangerous. If you think so, please help us." Madison was wailing like a child. "Do something. My first trip to France turned into such a bad memory. I can't help." Seemingly having given up on relying on him. With footsteps, Madison's voice faded away. "Is there anyone who can help us? Stop it, it's embarrassing. Mom, I'm gonna hang up for now." Yes. I was rather relieved he decided to hang up. There's nothing I can do from Los Angeles, and I have no reason to be kind to Madison now. With a sigh, I ended the call. After a while, Jacob called again. I hesitated to answer, wondering if I should. But, they are my son and daughter-in-law, after all. I decided to listen and answered the phone. "What happened?" "Someone stole my wallet." "What?" I never imagined such a thing would actually happen. I was genuinely shocked. Jacob said in a depressed voice. I could sense Madison crying nearby. "In just a moment of not paying attention to my bag, everything was taken. Except my phone, which I had in my hand, my wallet, everything." "Come pick us up, please." I could hear the tearful voice. "That's impossible," I replied. "Why not?" "Securing a plane ticket now is difficult." "That's what you said." "Oh no!" Madison groaned on the phone. "But, if we wait a few days, we might be able to get a plane ticket, right?" "Wait a minute." Madison raised her voice angrily at Jacob's suggestion. "We don't have any money. If we stay like this, we'll end up waiting for you, without eating or drinking. Don't talk about waiting for days like it's nothing." "There's nothing I can do about it." I could feel the tension rising between them. "Is there any other way?" "Don't be so arrogant." Madison was initially angry with Jacob, but her voice gradually weakened, returning to a tearful tone. Please help us. We're overseas and can't communicate well, and we don't know what to do anymore. You're adults, I said, exasperated. Figure it out and act on your own. How can you say that? Please, I apologize for being mean. Just help us, please. Even if you say that. Thinking calmly, the best course of action would be to rely on the local police. However, it seemed Madison, in her panic, couldn't come up with that idea. Finally, Madison broke down crying, and an irritated Jacob said, So, it's okay for us to just end up whatever, Mom? You went on this trip just the two of you, thinking you could handle it, right? What do you want me to do? Eventually, Jacob lost his composure as well. He said angrily, How am I supposed to take responsibility? There's nothing I can do now. As long as you direct your frustration at me, I have nothing to say or teach you. I was about to end the call, when Madison's voice burst through the phone again. What should we do? I'll apologize as much as you want when we get back, so please tell us. Cool your heads first. That's right. If they could calm down, they would be able to think about what to do on their own. I chose to end the call and turned my gaze to the table. On the table, at Tom's request, was a pot of soup that had cooled a bit. I reheated it before calling Tom. Tom, who had been doing his homework in his room, seemed happy. I love Grandma's soup. Thank you. I smiled at his untroubled smile. If Madison hadn't done something unnecessary and the whole family had arrived in France together, Tom could have been enjoying even more delicious food. It's unfortunate because of his mother. Eventually, Madison and Jacob had to rely on the local police. They managed to get seats on a plane back home under the condition that they would pay for the tickets upon their return. Madison looked utterly exhausted at first sight. Her makeup was ruined from crying, making a mess of her appearance. As soon as she saw me, Madison apologized to me. She spoke as if groaning. I'm so sorry. Mom, I'm sorry too. He also offered an apology. This one here has decided not to be mean to you anymore, Mom. Is that true? Yes. From now on, I'll do as you say. Madison looked like she was about to cry again, perhaps deeply hurt by the whole ordeal. Then, I stroked Tom's head as he looked sadly at his parents. From now on, I'll be the one to decide Tom's tutoring and extracurricular activities schedule. What? Madison was shocked, but I stood firm. If I leave it to you, who knows what will happen to Tom? But Tom is my son. Then act like a mother. I snapped firmly. Madison shivered, looking frightened. Seeing that, I continued. From now on, buying luxury bags and hanging out with friends late into the night are banned. You will learn to be a regular housewife and manage household chores. I crossed my arms after saying so. Honestly, these were words I didn't want to say. If you can't do that, you'll have to leave this house. No way! Hey, Mom, isn't that a bit too much? Both of them reacted as expected. But this was necessary for Tom's sake. I spent time at home with Tom while the two of them were away. That's when I came to understand. Jacob, you can't take care of Tom, can you? Well, it's true, but if so, the mother needs to be responsible. If Madison can't do that, we need to find someone else who can take care of Tom. I'll be responsible, Madison said while blowing her nose with a tissue. It looked like a scolded elementary school student. I'll take responsibility. So please, don't talk about divorce. Please. All right. I thought to myself. If she's begging and crying like this, it must have been a good lesson for her. I was too optimistic. I'm home. Madison. Less than a month later, Madison started breaking curfew and going out again. Weren't you supposed to have reflected on your actions? I did. That's why I'm coming home earlier than before, and I've cut down on shopping. She said nonchalantly, laughing. This was hopeless. I decided to have Jacob prepare the divorce papers. I don't want that. As expected, Jacob protested. But I had anticipated that much. Even after seeing this? What? What is this? Looking at the photos spread on the table, Jacob's face twisted. They were photos of Madison cheating. Call it a woman's intuition or whatever. I had a hunch. So, I secretly hired a detective. These photos came with the report. Even with this, you don't want to divorce Madison? Well, that's... Jacob hesitated. After all, Madison was cavorting with multiple men. From their attire, they might even be nightclubs or something similar. She was doing this when I wasn't looking? Jacob muttered, his shoulders trembling. So, what will you do? Divorce Madison? When I asked, Jacob slowly turned to me. Anger was evident in his eyes. I'll divorce her, Mom. I see. So, the household will dissolve then. Dissolve? Jacob looked puzzled, tilting his head. I nodded and said, I'm leaving this house too. What? Jacob exclaimed, taken aback. But I had been considering this for a long time. I wonder if you two can't become independent because I'm here. So, I thought we might try living separately from now on. But, Mom, that's troublesome. Jacob hastily clung to me. Despite being much taller than me, he looked smaller because he was kneeling on the floor. I can't do household chores, and what about Tom? I'll take Tom with me. What? Again, Jacob was surprised. Truly, he had no interest in my actions or thoughts. I had been looking for an apartment to move into for a while now. But Jacob had been completely unaware. Aren't you my mother? Can a mother abandon her son? Before that, aren't you Tom's father? Have you ever acted fatherly? Well, that's... If he demands motherly behavior from me, Jacob should start acting like a father to Tom. Both you and Madison are failures as parents. Mom, wait. Give me another chance. I'll get it together, remarry a decent woman, and we can be a family again. Jacob always proposes what's convenient for him. Anyway, I'll divorce Madison. We'll talk after that. No, I've already decided. Mom. In response to his pleading voice, I turned away. The moving arrangements are already made. Choosing a place relatively close wasn't for Jacob and Madison's sake. It was solely to ensure Tom wouldn't have to change schools. That day, when Madison returned home late as usual, Jacob confronted her with the divorce papers, turning her face pale. You're joking, right? You're the one joking around, dating with who knows how many men. Jacob was furious, but from my perspective, both were making childish arguments. I couldn't bear the burden of the two of them anymore. So, I decided to say goodbye to both of them. You can't just spring a divorce on me. I have no savings. How am I supposed to live? I can't even do household chores. What am I going to do from now on? While listening to their desperate voices, I left them. Later, Jacob lost his job for being untidy, far from considering remarriage. How do you use a washing machine? I don't even know how to iron. That's probably why he couldn't even wash his clothes. A suit full of wrinkles and stains indeed looks bad. It negatively affected the company's image. Meanwhile, it turned out Madison had been borrowing money from friends to fund her outings. They counted on Jacob's income, which quickly led her into a financial deadlock. Just wait a little longer. I'll find a way to pay you back. Madison's figure, begging around, reached me through the grapevine, but I felt nothing anymore. Only Tom said, disappointedly. They've troubled people other than Grandma too. I'm really let down. They'll get their act together eventually. Really? Tom seemed uncertain. After that, Tom began to dedicate himself to his studies voluntarily. I want to be a hero like Grandma. I'm not such a hero you imagine. I blushed and looked down. I wished he would forget about that incident. Interestingly, the CEO, upon learning of the situation, sent another invitation to the hotel. But Tom didn't want to go. I don't want to go. Why? You can eat lots of delicious food on a trip. Grandma's cooking is the best in the world, Tom said with earnest eyes. I was moved to tears. Tom, I'm going to study hard and become a decent adult. That's how I want to make Grandma happy. It was a mature resolve for an elementary school student. Yet, I thought, taking detours is also necessary to become a decent person. Is that so? Yes. If you only study, your heart won't grow. If you play too much, you'll end up like your mother, but studying alone isn't good either. When I explained this, Tom pursed his lips. It's difficult. Let's learn little by little. After all, his journey was just beginning.